So with this week's episode of The Rising of the Shield Hero, I'm sure Naofumi wishes that he could do this project solo, but is just dreading the fact that he knows that he has to do a group project with people that really don't want to listen to reason. This episode was really fun to me, especially because it really shows just how far a lot of these characters have come. I know a majority of the people watching this will really just let their feelings dictate what's going on, thinking, oh, Naofumi isn't trying hard enough, how could this character say something like that? But that's really not what Vittoria was saying at all. She has been around for generations, she knows what these waves will do, and how one hero can't be at every country at once, and once the waves get deeper into their counts, it's going to be too devastating for one hero to deal with. That's why 4 are summoned, and even if Naofumi hates these characters, even if these characters murdered his family, unfortunately for him, until these waves are dealt with, he can't let feelings dictate this, and Naofumi also recognizes that he hasn't took the effort to try to talk to them. He's usually ignored them, if not gave into fighting. This is a very complex situation that, if Naofumi was put into their shoes, he would have been just as brainwashed. Being worshipped as a hero, getting this hero complex, playing superhero, having the top members of a royal family say you're the best and this is the devil. From minute 1, this is how it was painted, but of course you understand why all these characters are acting this way. That's what makes the Rising of the Shield Hero so interesting, is even though characters like the Spear Hero, I hate them, I find them so annoying, but I love the fact that they're in the anime, because you can't just have all the characters be likable on a really good level. You need to have very hateable characters for your central characters to go up against, but they also have to be well written. And even though on a surface level you could look at many of these characters, such as the Oldest Princess, and say they are very tropey in their overall presence, however, how they're acting is actually pretty well written in terms of why they're acting this way. The Oldest Princess clearly wants to kind of sabotage everything going on, and obviously didn't see the church coming in to screw her over. In terms of the Spear Hero acting like, he's being brainwashed, all this really nonsensical just nonsense, it's clear why he would believe it, because the people that he's been traveling with since day 1, who's proven that he is like this hero that he was summoned in to basically play Superman from day 1, so of course he's gonna side with his party that he's been with since pretty much day 1, rather than someone who's been basically framed as a sex predator by the highest ranking people in this country. It's very infuriating, but you understand why this horrible and just despicable character is acting in this way, but you understand why Naofumi just can't run and hide, because he's even recognizing within this fight that's going down, the levels are just so ridiculous, and if he's even struggling to deal with one of the heroes, of course, later in the waves, it's going to be a challenge. Even if they're all properly leveled and equipped, there's going to be waves across this entire kingdom, across all these countries. It's just too much for one person to handle, and if Naofumi wants to leave, he has to survive, and if survive means work with people he hates, that's what he's going to have to do, and that shows how much growth has really happened. There's so many, just simple moments in these episodes that people will overlook, but actually really highlight how the development is really solid. You're seeing Melty in this episode say something along the lines of how it doesn't matter how people are going to look at Naofumi at this point in time, because there's going to be people like the one they just fought up against who will release a demon to attack you just to get their way. Before, Melty was very cautious. You wanted to make sure that Naofumi presented himself in the best way so people wouldn't get the wrong idea and make his impression on the world even worse than it already is. Now she recognizes that that's off the table. Until they get to her mother, they need to just get to their destination and just not trust in too many people, something that's very important. Naofumi recognizing that he has to talk to these people and really hoping it would be Bow or Sword that he would run into, because they are the most logical and rational out of the group, to then the crushing realization that he'll have to deal with the most illogical character that he's ever dealt with. Seriously, the Spear Hero, I love to hate him. That's how I view this character. It's kind of interesting with the whole Pope situation, because some of his dialogue isn't actually incorrect. These heroes did cause a lot of misfortune, and in all rights, they shouldn't be summoned. There should have been different heroes summoned. Obviously, there's this irrational hatred for the Shield Hero in this country. However, the other pieces of dialogue that he was saying, yeah, I can understand why he would view these other heroes as fakes. Obviously, if he really would put away his hate boner, he would be able to recognize that Naofumi is a true hero and deserves to be the one protecting everyone. However, I don't think there's enough time to resummon other people to deal with these ways, especially if Naofumi is already struggling to level because he couldn't actually properly level up because the country was holding him back. They need all the help they can get, and if this is the help they gotta work with, this is what should happen. But we can see that the church is trying to overthrow the government and easily take charge. And it's pretty interesting seeing the kind of spiderwebs kind of untangle, because you got this really interesting political atmosphere going on. And when the queen does return, obviously this will be the next destination 100%, is getting to the queen, because literally everything's going to shit. And the fact that they were trying to blame Naofumi on basically killing the bow as well as the sword hero, and the Pope is just like, nah, God did that. Like, there's no way that the princess can now frame this, because even for someone as just clouded by his just hatred for Naofumi, the spear hero can't ignore the fact that the Pope, the people that he was originally listening to, are saying that no, God smited them down, and after Naofumi literally just took on this massive missile essentially to save them, even though they're not going to be buddies, it still is enough that is really shaping up into something interesting. It's rather than just keeping it as Naofumi once again gets blamed as killing another hero or doing something bad, the person responsible admitted to what went down, so you can't even pull that card anymore. Obviously the eldest princess wanted to blame Naofumi on these deeds and probably was trying to work alongside the church, and then the church had a couple of extra cards up their sleeve that she wasn't expecting, which makes it a really shaky battleground right now. And obviously the queen is who we need to get to the most, and hopefully the other kingdoms will back her, and maybe we can overthrow this kind of really corrupt religion that is just going completely off the rails. But as much as I may dislike this church, I really like what they're doing to the story right now, and it makes it really interesting. The battle was pretty fun, because something I really wasn't thinking about too much was just the overall team dynamics. We saw a little bit in the early stages, but we really never saw like skills kind of linking up together, and in this episode we see the spear hero do it with his party, and it was a pretty devastating attack. Like, all of the heroes have really interesting weapons and just abilities that they can use. We've seen quite a few. We haven't seen as much with the spear, bow, and sword as we have with the shield hero. However, anytime we have seen their like really powerful attacks, it's been really fun to focus on. So to see an actual kind of like combo system, it was just really eye-pleasing as well. It was just cool to see how Naofumi took that and applied it to himself. So even though he was under-leveled, massively under-leveled to someone like the spear hero, because he hasn't been able to basically level up properly because the church kind of locked him out, it was still interesting to see how he was able to beat them, because his party, especially Fila, who has essentially leveled up because of everything that's happened with her, but also just the combos, it's showing why, you know, while he was playing essentially superhero, he was actually struggling to stay alive, and that's why he was able to overtake him. And it was really interesting, because you're seeing characters like Fila take what she learned against the queen and essentially apply it to this battle, not just focusing on her bird form, but also her human form, which is exactly what you need to see for the next future queen of her species, someone who can both be a menace both in her human form as well as her bird form. A majority of this episode was action, and it was really fun seeing. Like, not all the action was animated that smoothly. Of course, you're going to have the typical anime shots where it is more held onto a shot, a couple of effects, but still, I love seeing just all the different just colors clashing with each other, all the different styles of magic or swordplay. It was just very fun. It was very fun because there was a story being told here of Naofumi just so exhausted. Like, he's not even in a burning rage against the princess being like, I hate this bitch. He's just like, why does she have to be like this? He is so exhausted, and it pains him that he needs these heroes in order to survive that wave. And that's the story that's so interesting to me, is he's trying to put aside, he's trying to communicate, and if this would have been the bow or sword, he would have had a lot easier of a time dealing with this 100%. Just seeing just how this spear hero is kind of interacting with him, this easily could have been Naofumi if they reverse roles here, because the one being brainwashed has been him this entire time. And of course, he's not going to ask the logical conclusion of like, well, why don't you brainwash me or something like that, because he's clueless. He's just going to focus on what he sees as reality, which is his party, which unfortunately has some of the worst characters in it, with the king and the eldest princess, things to that nature. But of course, Naofumi recognizes and he admits that he has to put his full effort. If this fails, of course, he probably would give up on talking with his hero and just move along to the next. However, he wasn't in any real danger for the most part, so he was able to defend trying to talk, and it wasn't because he was trying to forgive and forget, which I think so many people are latching onto. It's because he needs to survive this world. The ways get worse and worse as it goes, and now Fumi can't be in 10 places at once. He needs the other heroes to work alongside them, and I really doubt this bow as well as the sword are dead. They could be, but I have a feeling that they probably have some sort of skill or something that would get them out alive. I couldn't say for sure about their party that was with them, but in terms of the heroes, we know they have some pretty ridiculous skills, and they have been leveling up. So even though they're not a defender like Naofumi, I wouldn't be surprised if they have something that could keep them alive, and it'll be interesting to see, especially because the Pope literally just exposed everything, the basically political scheme that was going on. Essentially, they've been labeled as corpses, and that's what's going to happen. They're going to have to get to her mother. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen, because Mama's going to have her work cut out for her 100%. Voice acting for Naofumi in the Japanese dub was pretty interesting because it was just such an exhausted voice. Someone who didn't want to do this, didn't want to talk to these people, didn't want to fight, just tired of the bullshit. That's essentially his voice, and I thought it was great because that's how he should be. Because it pains him to say that he needs as much help as he can get, but he has to do it. He's biting his tongue. He can get his revenge, he can get out his anger and frustration after the waves are dealt with. He essentially just has to work with the most powerful people in this world so they can fight the waves together, that being the countries as well as, unfortunately, the other heroes. And I really like that. I feel like a lot of people are trying to latch on to the fact that he's just trying to ignore the fact that it's his fault or things like that, but no, Naofumi was dealt the worst hand he could get. Pretty much everyone with a brain recognized this. However, the people he has to fight with have to be those heroes. They have to work together, and even if they don't like each other, that's how it has to go. I guarantee you, with every wave that has happened, not every hero has got along with the other. Obviously, we're probably witnessing the worst extreme where someone is painted as the villain from day one, but still, you gotta fight with them so that you can survive, take out your anger and frustration afterwards. Hell, you might even just part ways when it's all said and done anyway. That's what I like about the Shield heroes. Even though on a surface level, there's a lot of tropes and gimmicks to the overall characters' personalities and motivations, when you actually dive into what's going on, you see there's a lot more at play here. We see an eldest princess who is, your typical villain, but is actually really trying to screw over the political foundation for her own personal gain. You got a church just shattering everything, so even when you have eldest princess trying to do something like this, she gets screwed in the process. The heroes, who may be like these really dense and just infuriating characters, you understand why they are like that, and you understand why certain characters like Bow and Sword are more willing to focus on Naofumi because they haven't been as brainwashed by the political landscape as someone like the Spear hero from day one, as they kind of part ways a bit more. They're not traveling with Worst Girl, Spear hero is, and you can see how she has a way with her words to really just kind of latch on and just really manipulate people. If anyone's being manipulated by a kind of mind control shield, it would have to be the Spear hero, but of course you're not going to tell someone who's brainwashed that they're being brainwashed and have them admit to it. The same reason why he believes that his party, Naofumi's party, isn't admitting that they're brainwashed. It's a really messy situation all around, and Naofumi is just tired of the bullshit and just wants to go home, probably sit back and relax to a nice cold beer, but unfortunately, this is what he has to do. He has to put up with bullshit. There's so many people trying to kill him. He's not powerful enough because he hasn't leveled up properly, and everything is going to shit. But for everyone who watched this week's episode of The Rising of the Shield Hero, be sure to let me know your thoughts down in that comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.